By the way, your hair looks cute.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. We are live, and I'm feeling cute, and I've got floofy hair and all the fun things. I'm Haley Graham, the founder of Women's Entrepreneur Network. I have my two dear friends here with me tonight, Velma Gallant and Victoria Bentley, and we talk about a range of different topics, usually life, the universe, and everything, but not so long. And thanks for all the fish. And if you caught that reference, bless you. It'll be a lot of fun. If you can tell me where that reference is from, I'll be impressed.
Are we talking about So Long and Thanks for All the Fish? And
So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. Yeah, where is that from?
Yeah, that movie. That was great. Cafe at the End of the Galaxy. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It was a whole book series before it was a movie.
Yeah.
I read that book 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Boy, oh boy.
I can't talk my kids into reading it, but I really wish they would because it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I actually got towels for my 42nd birthday.
Awesome.
So, yeah, our family is like serious nerds. In case you're wondering, we are nerds and geeks galore. But since we're talking about life, the universe, and everything, and we're not talking about towels tonight, we're talking about loving yourself first, because one of the things I believe is that, we as women try to put everybody else first, our kids, our husbands, the dog, the cat, our parents, our big toenail, the snail on the back porch first. And, I think that a lot of times, personally, we put ourselves dead last, and it impacts our performance in our jobs, in our businesses, in our relationships with our children and our families and our husbands and everything else. And sometimes we think it's incredibly selfish to put ourselves first. And I had a huge revelation a couple of years ago. Well, okay, it's been more like 4.5 years ago, that if I didn't put myself first, if I didn't love myself first above everybody else and do the hard work to learn to love myself, I was going to die. Because I was at 427 pounds. And, things were not going in my favor. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. And it's informed my life. Learning to put myself first always seems kind of greedy or, hard to do. Mom always wants to put on, the kids' oxygen mask first, on an airplane, right? And, raise your hand if you've ever had a flight attendant remind you to put on your own oxygen mask first, and then, pick which child you prefer.
The one with the most promise.
Right.
Pick the child with the most promise.
It's really, I find the topic really interesting, and I've been considering it a lot lately because, I live on my own. So if I don't take care of me, I comment that nobody else is going to be able to. But the reality is, if I don't take care of me, I'm forcing someone else to take care of me when I fall apart. So that might be my son, that might be my mom. Who knows who's going to get stuck with caring for me because I didn't.
Well, and I would dare say I've been married for almost 31 years. I got flowers for the second time ever for Valentine's. Last time I got flowers was in 1991. Y'all can applaud wildly. But as somebody who's been married for a very long time, and I have kids too, I don't take care of myself, somebody else is going to have to. Take care of me. Yeah, absolutely. Physically, mentally, spiritually, all of it. Even as somebody who's married, there's still that, okay, well, my husband's going to have to drop everything and take care of me. That's not fair.
Yeah. Well, and even going further than that, it's somebody else is going to get the responsibility that you've been putting in front of yourself. So, I have a family member whose partner is going deeper into Alzheimer's. And if she doesn't put herself first, she's not going to be there to take care of this person she's been putting in front of herself.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, that's part of my story too, right? I have a child who doesn't have Alzheimer's. She has a traumatic brain injury, and she lives in a group home, and I'm her legal guardian. If I don't put myself first, I'm not going to be able to take care of her and her needs. And then I'm creating an even bigger problem for my children and my husband, my other children, the other 3 of them, and my husband, because then it's not me taking care of my oldest. It's one of them has to do it, and then one of them has to take care of me too. Creates huge downhill problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and you have to love yourself unconditionally to be able to put yourself first, to be able to, to really, I mean, focus in on that self-care, self-love. And self-care isn't necessarily going and getting a manicure. It might be, but it might not be.
Sleep, making sure I get my sleep. And if you kind of twist that even further, loving myself is a way of loving others, because I'm not putting those responsibilities on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I always thought about things like that in regards to personal freedoms. And I was a cigarette smoker. I'm not anymore. I haven't been a smoker in over 20 years. And I don't trust the government to handle this, but I feel very strongly that if you want to smoke, that's fine. That's okay. I keep getting these weirdo messages popping up on my computer. We're going to make them go away. I keep thinking, if you want to smoke, that's fine. I am not someone who's going to say smoking became very evil and very bad, and it was worse than heroin. And I didn't understand it, but it became a political issue as opposed to a health issue. And I always thought that if you want to smoke, okay, but make sure that with every pack of cigarettes, a certain amount of money is being set aside for your care for lung cancer, that you're paying in advance for that. And I take it to another level. I was, once upon a time, I worked in neurotrauma and took care of usually very young men, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, in motorcycle accidents without helmets. And so from here up, there was nothing going on. But from here down was a 20-year-old body that was going to live for another 50 years, right? And I mean, their care was $1,000 a day. And that was how many years ago when I was a nursing student. And I think about that and I think, we have all these motorcycle helmet laws. If you don't want to have a helmet, that's your business. I don't want to get into that. If that's your gig, great. Just don't ask me to pay for it. So if you're not willing to put yourself first, start thinking about what you're going to be doing to other people when you don't, and be responsible for that. So I kind of think we've done it backwards. But I think that the helmet laws are a good example, and the cigarette laws, and all the dopey messages on the pack of cigarettes. I mean, anybody who doesn't realize that cigarettes are deadly is stupid. But if you want to
you can't legislate brains.
Yeah, exactly. And I
you can't make people think either.
No, exactly. But if you're asking me to take care of your health care with my tax dollars because you're indigent and you can't pay your medical bills, that's not appropriate. That's irresponsible. And if you want to smoke, fine, but you just have to pay for it if you're going to do that. And I don't trust any government organization to manage that money without borrowing from it or sending it to Ukraine or whatever the hell else it does with it. But you know where I'm going with this, with the concept of self-care. I think it has great societal value. Like you said, if I don't take care of myself, I'm leaving other people saddled with a traumatic brain injury. and they are not as equipped to take care of her as I am, right? And
Unfortunately.
yeah, so love one another maybe is the best way to look at this.
Well, you have to love yourself first and then love others. I do believe that. You know, a lot of people are like, oh,
Right.
you have
You don't
to
have the
love God
capacity to love
first.
others. Right. Unless you love yourself.
But I actually don't feel like you could even love God if you don't love yourself first. There has to be a seed there that you have to have some sort of love for yourself in order to be able to love God, love others, put others first, love others as yourself. You know, whatever your faith doctrine is, I feel like if you don't put on that oxygen mask first, well, it's going to be hard to get to God, children, others, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And you look at how codependence kills. You know,
Yeah.
you walk into a crazy family and you see someone drinking himself to death, and then you see the spouse, often the wife, enabling the person, and you think, well, he's got a chemical making him nuts. What's your story? And it's not loving oneself.
Mhm.
And then setting that example for your children.
Yeah. No, I mean, I see it with food all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Here,
Great
why don't you
example.
eat this? Here, let me feed you over and over again. I see it, you know, definitely codependence is a thing with alcohol, with drugs.
Food.
It can be, you know, so many different things. And yet, you know, sometimes we think that we're loving, and we really need to examine that. Are we really loving ourselves? Are we really showing our family love? Or is this some sort of interesting psychological warfare game?
More often than not, it's abdicate. If we abdicate responsibility for ourselves, we're actually abdicating responsibility for everything.
If we're abdicating responsibility for ourselves, we're abdicating responsibility for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
Absolutely.
good.
Well, and I feel like so many times it's really easy to blame other people for our condition, right?
Again, blame is abdicating your own personal responsibility.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I could blame my daughter for all of her own issues, but I mean, the reality is they are.
Yeah.
You know,
What's the point?
but what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I going to get out of
Doesn't get you
that?
any closer to any fix, any solution, anything. It's just
getting hella frustrated by the mental health system. Oh, by the way, she was hospitalized for 5 days. They did nothing and then sent her home.
While you were away?
And yeah, they sent her home Monday morning before I could get to dealing with anything, after refusing to answer my husband's phone calls. You know, I look at it and I'm like, you know, I could get really frustrated, or I could just decide, you know, it just is the system, and I can beat my head against the wall and wail with frustration till the cows come home, or I can just decide to approach it in a more loving manner and do what I can do, and only what I can do.
That will probably lengthen your life.
Tiny bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it'll certainly avoid the concussion from beating my head needlessly against the brick wall in the kitchen.
Isn't that a perfect example of loving yourself first?
Yeah.
Because that's choosing that my well-being is a higher priority for me than your ineptness.
Right. And my getting frustrated by your ineptness and your inability to do anything, you know, being completely frustrated by the system as it isn't necessarily going to achieve any change. It's that setting back and figuring out how to work the system and potentially figure out how to change the system. But beating my head against the wall is not the way to influence people, for sure.
No.
It's a way to get tired quickly.
Yeah, and give yourself a concussion in the process, right?
That's a new
or
acronym.
liver failure.
FFS instead of it for being for F's sakes. It's flat forehead syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, on the subject, being powerless is really a
Mhm.
bitch.
Yeah,
And
totally.
and that is so much of what's going on. And
I feel like it is and it isn't. I feel like we're choosing how to respond to our scenario and our situation around us.
Mm-hmm.
We
yes,
either choose to
yes,
respond as a victim, as a powerless victim, or as somebody who's empowered and gets to choose their own reactions to the situation.
well, you choose your own reaction, whether you're aware of it or not. Or not making a decision is making a decision. Um, however,
Absolutely.
however, on the subject of your daughter with a traumatic brain injury and the other diagnosis, you're powerless over that. The
Mhm.
only thing you have control of is how you choose to respond. But you are powerless over her illness. It is
Oh,
what it is,
absolutely.
and
I
it's not
cannot control what is going on in her body at all.
right. And that is that's very tough. That's the frustration that comes with that, the sadness that comes with that, the
Oh, sure.
anger that comes with that, um, the rage that comes with that. It's really tough because the older I get and the hopefully smarter I get as I get older, the more I realize how very little, other than the wing spread right here, how very little
Hmm.
control we all have. And
Absolutely. But you
um,
get to control what goes on in your head, right?
I do
So
how I want to
I get
look
to
at it.
choose how I look at a situation, how I
Mhm.
react to a situation. I can't choose what the doctor is going to do. I can maybe influence what they're going to do or where we're going, in the longer run. I choose to make decisions where I can influence what I can influence
Mhm.
and let the rest ride. And I think that for me, like this last weekend was a really great example. I was out of the country. I had no cell phone reception on Friday. So everything happened on Thursday. Friday, I had no cell phone reception because I'm on a cruise ship. And you know what? I was just like, you know what? I will deal with it Monday. The whole scenario will still be there on Monday, whether she's in the hospital or not in the hospital. I get to choose how I react, and I'm not going to let it ruin my entire weekend.
Mhm. And
And
that's
I
love.
get to choose. And that's love, right? I choose
That's love.
myself.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, exactly. I don't have any power over her healing, whether she heals or doesn't. I have power to help her, pray for her, love her, make sure she's treated good under her circumstances. And I can choose, when and how to react to. Like, if she's safe, I don't necessarily have to go flying off the handle. When she's hospitalized, she's safe. I don't really need to worry about it.
Well, and when you're not in a position to be able to be present and do something about it, worrying yourself sick
Mm-hmm.
does not equip you for being able to handle it when you get there.
Absolutely.
Right. Where did we learn that is a symptom of caring and love? The whole generation ahead of us
I
who
think
would
that,
say
humans
really,
are conditioned to worry ourselves to death, though.
I think about my mother's generation and who would always feel sorry for someone or have pity for someone or I feel so badly for someone. And well, what are you going to do about it? Do something. Stop wringing your hands, stop feeling pity, stop feeling sorry. What a waste of emotion. That is not love. That's just virtue signaling.
It's,
And it makes me
it's
nuts.
a waste of energy and a
Mm-hmm.
waste of
Yeah, it's
breath.
that too.
I mean, y'all, those of you that know me in person know that I am actually a very boring person in some ways to be around because I'm very calm, very steady. I think Victoria described me as the person she would want me to be her co-pilot, because if the plane was like losing an engine, I'd be looking over going, looks like we lost an engine. Okay, here's what we're going to do about it. Oh, lost
you
another one.
engineers.
Oh, us crazy engineers, right? And I mean, I think it's important to learn those skills, early about, okay, you can provoke the shit out of me, but I'm not necessarily going to react to it. As somebody who had a mom who was extremely flamboyant, I learned that skill as an early age.
That's interesting.
You might be running yourself into suborbit over here, but it doesn't mean that I have to join you on the journey.
Don't you remember that when in danger, when in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout?
That was my mother.
The camp motto, right? And I think about, so much wasted time, so much stupidity.
A lot of wasted energy too.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I admit I'm lazy. I really am fundamentally lazy. I don't like lifting an extra finger that I don't have to lift.
That's not
wasting energy
on
silly nonsense. But I am good at pranking people sometimes.
I think that we just have been raised to be other-centered, as opposed to, in that it's unchristian to be self-centered, and it kind of misses the point.
I think that right, exactly. It's unchristian. It's unseemly to be self-centered, right? And I think that there is a certain energy in being self-centered. I will say that for my mother, being self-centered, my mother had multiple sclerosis for many, many, many years. Probably the last 40 years of her life. And her self-centeredness was what kept her walking. It's what kept her talking. It's what kept her functioning the last 40 years of her life, when other people might not have done the same. And this was before there were any effective medications for multiple sclerosis.
So her self-determination, her choosing this before other things first kept her going.
Choosing to put herself first. And by its very same token, my father's decision to put my mother first at all costs cost him a great deal, because he did not put his own health care first. So while her health didn't deteriorate, his went. And it's a perfect example of that. He didn't put on his own oxygen mask first, but she was very good at putting on her own oxygen mask.
Interesting. Yeah. And maybe the moral of the story is there needs to be a balance.
Right? Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely, right? You need to put on your own oxygen mask first, but it doesn't mean that you're sucking energy out of every single person around you, for sure.
A lot of that going on.
Energy vampires are a thing. We all know them.
Back to our original topic all those years ago of life's too short clients.
And we might have life's too short family members too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think that could be twisted too into lead yourself first.
Say more.
So in my life, I have found that being a parent, going through divorce, those were all leadership training skills. And like one of the things that I kept saying over and over to myself is, in order for my son to learn what I need him to learn, I need to lead him. I need to lead myself first. I have to lead by example. And I think those are all the same things. I need to love by example.
Yeah. And I think leadership is a lot about love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I also think if you want to learn to lead, you got to learn to serve with your gifts first.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Well, in order to serve with your gifts, you need to love yourself enough to let them grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And love and accept yourself that you have these gifts
Mm-hmm.
in order to give them.
Yeah, Ida says if I did not put God in myself first, I could not deal with the situation with my hubby right now. Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Faith, self, whatever you need to put yourself together again, to hold yourself together is what you need to do first. Your oxygen mask.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great topic.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Love you
It was
guys.
good inspiration tonight. I love you. Love you too. Yeah.
I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for the wisdom, the combined wisdom of 150 years in the room, right? And then some. And
one or two.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for what you bring to the table.
Likewise, and it's not, to me, business is about friendships and relationships and being ethical and, being holy with whole WHOLY within yourself, like being really centered and grounded. I find one of the realities with life and business is that if you are not putting on that oxygen mask first, taking care of yourself, making sure you're in a place where you can support your family, none of this other business stuff really matters, and it'll tear you right off your axis.
Yep. Well, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to be able to serve the way you're supposed to serve?
Absolutely. Right.
You can't. You might be able to do it for a while, but
I was going to say I've known a lot of people who've played that card until they had the big heart attack, and they've been able to do that for a long time.
Yeah, well, we can, we can rob Peter to pay Paul a long time, but at the end of the day, it catches up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I see moms of young children doing that all the time. They somebody needs to be fed, somebody needs to be changed. That's the way that is.
Well, and that's cultural and all kinds of things, right? But, once you're past that mom of baby, toddler, young children perspective, there's definitely you have to learn to put on your own oxygen mask first when dealing with teenagers.
Oh gosh, yes.
Or you can sell them.
Or you can do what with them?
You could sell them.
That's generally kind of frowned upon.
Yeah, yeah.
My mom used to say God created teenagers so you wouldn't miss them when they move out.
Your mother probably wasn't wrong.
No, I mean that.
I like teenagers better than babies. I do. They're interesting. Too. They talk. They're fun. I like them better.
It's a different kind of joy.
It is. And you still have to put on your own oxygen mask first because they're gonna test you in ways mentally, emotionally, spiritually that those babies just don't test you.
Yeah.
And I think if, a child could test you in all the ways at once, you'd probably go bonkers. But it's kind of like the analogy of like boiling a frog. You don't put a frog in boiling water. You put the frog in cold water and then you slowly increase the heat. I think that's a lot like what parenting is like.
I think parenting is a lot like weightlifting. The babies are pretty light. Those teenagers get really heavy and you have to get strong. You have to get strong.
Yeah, and you can't throw a teenager.
No, and that's the way
you might throw out your back.
As soon as I couldn't tuck him under my arm and take him where he needed to go, I had to learn how to lead him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although I have learned that a swift knocking their feet out from underneath them when they're being sassy can work from time to time.
Or withhold a telephone or a cell phone.
That's the worst
Listen.
form of torture imaginable.
Dog.
Adult
Dog.
children can also be a pain in the rear. Yeah, adult.
Dogs.
Humans all have their own thing, right? Dogs, yeah. So do y'all
They
want to
get
hear
pregnant
something
and
really,
sell their
really
children.
funny?
Mm-hmm.
So I wake up earlier this week and I am wandering, stumbling out of the bedroom, and I notice that there is a dog food bowl in my bed. Like an empty bowl that we use for the dog food.
They bring it into the bed?
And I'm sitting there at lunch later in the
my
day, and I looked at
word.
my husband. I'm like, honey, can you explain to me why there was a dog food bowl in the bed? Like, what am I missing? What am I not understanding? Because it's like a little bitty Corelle bowl. And he blushes and he stammers and he goes, well, Princess needed breakfast in bed.
Me too, buddy.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
Yep.
Princess needed breakfast in bed. So if y'all were wondering if my dog is spoiled, my husband's dog is spoiled, yes, she's incredibly spoiled.
That's so cute, actually.
Some people give their husbands very expensive, lavish gifts for their 30th anniversary. Mine got a hot mess of a Treeing Walker Coonhound who apparently needs breakfast in bed and goes to daycare twice a week.
See, you thought you were nerds. I think you live exciting lives.
Very exciting. And with that, I think we'll let y'all go. And you can envision my husband feeding Princess breakfast in bed in the morning. Bye, y'all.
Good night.
Night.